Okay. All right, Chief, over to you to set up the context for this next video.
Oh, absolutely. I think we all end up in a situation where you're working a wire and you have people that are speaking another language. And so they're interacting and they're talking. And maybe you have somebody on your team that's able to interpret and understand what's going on. But ultimately, reports still need to be written. You still need to get things together for court. Court's going to be looking for translation as well. There's a lot of reasons that we want to analyze this a lot further. And so having that ability to be able to do so just takes it to a whole nother level. So let's talk about how we can use these tools to use an audio file and dissect it, figure out what's going on, understand the context. And this is really important when you have a situation where maybe you're very understaffed or you have a small team or a team that doesn't understand the other language and you really want to try and find out more information. It makes it even more valuable. Going back to that small police department that just may not have the resources, but still needs to try and get work done. This provides that opportunity. So go ahead, Dave.
Cool. Well, yeah, just so a little bit of setup. This is fictitious data, obviously. I created it using some AI tools to create both a script and then an audio file. And what I asked it to create was something where there was mixed languages. So one person speaking English, the other person is responding in Spanish, and the context of the language is in drug and weapons trafficking using street slang, right? So to use common colloquial slang around that kind of criminal enterprise. So I'll switch over now and play a few seconds of that. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I used a video tool that you've seen us use before, Video Indexer, that indexes video, but it also indexes audio. And this is the audio file that I used to drop in there. So let me play a few seconds of it so you can hear the conversation.
Yo, what's good, big bro? No es mucho, joven. ¿Están todos directamente en ese trabajo? Nah, I'm running low, like real low. Only got a couple packs left. That wipe been moving quick since the weekend. Ese es el bache del viernes.
So you hear that there's a conversation going on, and it's clearly mixed languages. It's women. It's fictitious. That's the voice that was easiest for me to use. So now you've kind of heard that. Let me show you what we were doing with it.
And while you're saying that, and just the
Yeah, go
reason
ahead.
why we want to use fictitious information is we want to help you get your tools, but we don't want to ever jeopardize a case or anything like that. And so, yes, we have to utilize some auto-generated content just to protect integrity of other investigations and that sort of thing. So that's why we're using it that way. So go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate that. All right. So I'm on my analyst agent. I've gone to my previous conversations because it maintains kind of what you've done previously, and that way you don't have to sit here and watch it run. But I've got this Spanish-English mixed analysis. So the prompts that I put in, and we talked a lot about prompts, and prompts are important. You know, you get what you put, you get out what you put in, right? Garbage in, garbage out. But I really didn't have to do a particularly deep prompt for this. So I just said, analyze this transcript, give it to me in English, tell me what's going on in the conversation, and then I added the file for context. And it's already ran, obviously, but this analyst agent, right? It is agentic. It's looking at a very specific set. It likes structured data. So the data I gave it wasn't just the MP3 file. I processed it and took it as a JSON, which is a highly structured format with a lot of additional enrichment added to it. And it basically runs through a series of scripts, and it's calling different processes, etc. As we've said in previous videos, this was previously the domain of data scientists, and not everyone has data scientists or data science tools, but now they've been democratized to some degree through things like Copilot, large language models, and generative AI. So we go down through here. Sorry, I make it a little better kind of scrolling process. Go down all the way through this, and we get to a final output. And of course, then you could put this into a Word document or wherever you wanted it. But you see it's contextually turned it all to English. So now The speakers are back and forth in English. It's also giving me a context of what is going on. So it's, it's just providing me like, what is this? Well, it's a casual greeting, etc. But the more interesting part is where it's using coded language, right? So you got some more cook. It's asking there for more crack cocaine. This could be possibly a coded language about where drugs are hidden. Talking about the need to be cautious. Gets down here a little further. It says just a 40 with a switch in a stash spot, and it's referring to a 40 caliber gun with a switch, meaning possibly something that's been modified to be fully automatic. So I think that's super interesting how this model understands in context not only the languages and able to translate it, but also able to talk about what this language is they're using and what it's all about. Of course, experienced investigators deep in an area, the DEA, others may know that, but what a great way to be able to get that information. So Chief, kind of back over to you for some thoughts on this process.
Well, the great news about this process is, as you're trying to work on that affidavit or maybe that warrant or a report in general, oftentimes when you don't exactly understand what they're saying, and then having that translation that's giving you the context behind what is being said makes it a lot easier for you to be able to put that report together. And I would say that one of the biggest challenges that we have in policing in general are language barriers. And when there are language barriers, if you don't have somebody that speaks that language, it becomes even more difficult. So there's always that challenge of trying to get that together. And even when you do have a couple of people that speak that language, it's a couple of people. It's not the norm or the masses of the staff. And this really provides that leg up for police to be able to be effective, efficient, and still get the job done. Back to that smaller agency, they may not even realize, oh, this is what they're saying, just because they don't have a gang unit or a narcotics unit that's doing that every day. Because of that, that patrol officer maybe that's gathering this information, or somebody had brought in this recording to the patrol officer to review and said, this is what I heard my kids talking about. And now all of a sudden we're asking, well, can you translate that or something like that? Instead, we now have that ability to get that information and maybe some more insights that are going to help us. Now, I want to give a caveat here because those insights are valuable, but it's AI. So at some point, you still need to validate this. You still need to try and find out more information and not just run on, hey, the 40 caliber, but what is that? You're going to want to get some other circumstances, because I could see somebody getting in trouble in court by saying, well, the context of this was he was trying to stash a gun. Well, how do you know that? Well, the AI told me. And so we're going to want to, at some point, validate this a little bit more, maybe use that as an evidentiary clue, but not necessarily something that you're going to act on and say, well, the context of this said he was, looking for a 40 caliber gun. So this is what my warrant should, is going to say he was looking for a 40 caliber gun, when it really didn't say that. We might say, after we could validate that with a couple of people or get more information, this context is commonly referred to in this manner for people that are looking for a 40 caliber gun. So you're going to want to look at that, and you're going to want to validate that and have some oversight with it. But this is still going to get you light years ahead of what you would be doing otherwise, and significantly more efficient in what you're doing.
Yeah, no, great point, Chief, that this isn't the answer. It is a lead. It is a clue in the investigative process. And I think that's super important. And while you were talking and people were able to see this kind of running in the background here, I just put in another quick prompt that said, give me the translation again, but with the speakers identified, speaker 1, speaker 2, because I know the original that went in, it was diarized, right? There was 2 speakers and it knew who those were, and that's not the way it listed out. And this goes back to good prompting. I probably should have included that in my original prompt, so that not only did I get translation and context, but I also got it knowing which speaker, rather than just a bulleted numerical list 1 through 34 or whatever the parts of the conversation were. So now I'm able to do that, and it put it back into speaker 1, speaker 2. Now, I could combine all that and give myself even a better output that gave me the translation, the context of what they're talking about, and the speaker diarization. And it really does go down to really good prompts. I think they're so important. It's a skill that all of us that use AI, which essentially at some point is probably going to be all of us, you need to have that skill. So,
I want to say one thing on that too, and that is, as you are working on utilizing it, you're going to learn what these prompts are. And so I'm kind of glad that you actually did this to give an example of saying, okay, then you go back and, make a notepad, have notes or whatever, where you just keep your different prompts until you have it polished the way you want. Or maybe you can just keep revising while you're using your agent, and you could go in there and revise those prompts. So that way it is looking for all of those things and providing that. So yes, you should have maybe done it in the first place, but I'm glad you didn't, because we're all going to be, as we're learning this, we're going to constantly be learning new ways to add to our prompts to make them more effective and more efficient. So I think that's even more beneficial in some cases.
yeah, it's a great point. And the other point is that usually you get two problems where people start talking about hallucinations or bad data coming out of AI. Either your prompt's too ambiguous, meaning you just said, tell me something. And okay, well, what do you want, a joke? It's about good inputs, but it's also about not overly complex inputs. So if you have a very complex process, so say I wanted to give it this, what we're working on here, and I wanted to go through 4 or 5 steps, I may not want to write that all as one giant prompt, because I don't want to, just like asking a person questions, don't ask them 100 questions and then stop and wait for them to answer. Ask them a series of logical questions. Prompting is the same way. And to Chief's point, when you get to a series of prompts or a prompt that you always get good results from, and it's going to be something you reuse, you can go to the prompts. You could save it, right? So I could go up here to this prompt, for instance. I could copy it, I can edit it, I can save it, and when I save it, I can tell it what the name is, etc. And I can go to my prompts, and I would have those prompts saved. Now, I haven't saved any prompts for this particular agent yet, or there's pre-built prompts, but you can save them so that then you don't have to worry about getting it wrong, right? You can save it so that you can use it over and over again. And that's another benefit of agents versus just straight your chat GPT or your Copilot interface is you save it in an agent and you give agents very refined processes and things to look at, and then it just can run over and over and over again on a very narrow focus. It's having like having an intern that only does one thing. It gets your coffee and it knows exactly how you like it, and it returns it exactly the way you want it on time. So prompting is critical, and there's ways to do it better, which we can get into a whole nother series of videos on prompting and proper processes. So anything else, Chief, before we wrap up this one?
No, I was just going to say that just that, we will have some subsequent videos on prompting. And I think the biggest part about remembering prompts in general is AI is only thinking very linear. And sometimes when we're thinking of a totality of a circumstance, it's not very linear. And that's where you get into those issues. So awesome. Well, I think this is great. We call it a wrap, and get some more videos out here soon for you.